What's good, friends? Ebony Chappelle checking in here with something rejuvenating for your podcast listening and viewing pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of What's Good with Ebony Chappelle. I am extremely excited about today's episode. I am talking with none other than Ashley C. Ford. She's an amazing writer, just a brilliant thinker, and one of my favorite people on Twitter. So, she just does all the things. So really excited to talk with her today. For those of you that have been tuning in, listening to the show, sharing, commenting on social media, shout out to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your support. Remember to like and subscribe, rate and review, comment, leave ratings on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. It really goes a long way in helping to build this thing that I'm doing here. You can connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I also downloaded TikTok a couple weeks ago because my sisters convinced me to do it. There's not much on there. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to use it for, but you can check me out on TikTok at Ebony the Writer on all of those platforms. You can connect with me online at ebonychappelle.com. So, what's good with me? What's good with me is taking breaks. So, I am getting ready to go on a really long pseudo break, pseudo vacation. I'm still going to be working some of the time and still going to be doing, projects and stuff and paying attention to those. But I'm going to be taking some time away also just to reconnect, rejuvenate, and just give myself a breather. The podcast is still going to be going though. I recorded so much content, not knowing that I was going to take this long of a break, but I have so many episodes coming up, like it's crazy. So you don't have to worry about the pod going on a break at all, but that's what's been good with me. And it's fitting because Ashley and I talk about the fact that she's getting ready to go on a hiatus. So that made me, even more excited that she was able to carve out some time to talk with me before she did that. So I'm going to read Ashley's actual bio so that I don't miss anything and you guys can just understand who she is and what she's up to. So Ashley C. Ford's New York Times bestselling memoir, Somebody's Daughter, was published by Flatiron Books in June 2021. Ford is the former host of the Chronicles of Now podcast, co-host of the HBO companion podcast, Lovecraft Country Radio, and she currently lives in Indianapolis, Indiana, with her husband, poet and fiction writer Kelly Stacy, and their chocolate lab, Astro Renegade Ford-Stacy. I love that the dog has a hyphenated last name. That is amazing. Ford has written or guest edited for ELLE Magazine, Slate, Teen Vogue, New York Magazine, The New York Times, Domino, Cup of Joe, and various other web and print publications. Ashley's the shit, and I'm excited to talk with her. So without further ado, let's jump into this convo with Ashley C. Ford. I guess I'm dealing with what we could consider mind blindness because who isn't? So I don't even remember how long ago it was. I think a fond memory at some point, a fond memory I have is seeing you walking your dog, and I was just like sitting there, like I was on a meeting because I was like, I'm gonna take this meeting outside, and I'm just at this random place, and then I was like, that looks like Ashley. I was like, oh shit, that is Ashley.
Yep, walking the dog. Walking the dog, which is rare. I don't do a whole lot of walking the dog. That's something I usually force my husband to do.
Got it. So when do you decide that that's like something that you'll do? You're like, I guess I could do that today.
When he's not here, or he has something pressing on his schedule that just keeps him from being able to do it at a time that's good for the dog. If that's the case, has a schedule. Then I'll do it. He does, and his schedule overtakes everybody else's in the house. So yeah.
Oh man, that is hilarious. I have a pet. I have a cat. Her name's Opal, And Opal also has her own schedule that I have to adhere to. So if I sleep too late and I have not gotten up to put her food in the bowl, her wet food, at the specific time, she's like in my face, like, okay, so when are you going to get up and, do
Right.
the things?
She's like, do
Yeah.
your job.
Please.
I do mine. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
pet, so you do yours.
Oh, what I wouldn't give to be a pet,
I
honestly.
know. It seems better. It seems like a better life, I have to say. Astro leads a life that I am often envious of. Like, I often look at his life and I think, like, yeah, you're doing what everybody else wishes they were doing, which is being fed when you want to be fed, napping, and generally just like sitting around cuddling with your favorite people. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So, yeah.
What a freaking life. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, first off, thank you for making time to talk with me today. I deeply appreciate it. And I wanted to know, I start off every interview by asking people what's good with them. So it can be anything that's bringing a smile to your face, that's making you feel joy in your life. What's good with Ashley today?
What's good with me today is a recognition that I've gotten a lot better at resting and taking breaks. A lot better. And I feel really proud of myself about that today. So, yeah, that's what's good for me.
That's a beautiful thing. Taking rest and breaks is so, so extremely important. I understand that you are getting ready to go on a hiatus, which made me even happier because when I reached out and they're like, oh, she's taking a break, I said, yeah, that's cool, whenever. And then it happened sooner than I expected. I said, okay, cool. So, what does rest and hiatus, like, what do those things look like for you and why are they so important?
For me, it really looks like time that isn't disrupted. I don't like being interrupted. I had this realization. I don't know if it was a realization, a revelation, something that happened to me earlier this year where I realized that a lot of things that I'm like, I used to think I would like doing this and then I didn't like doing it, or I used to think that I would enjoy this activity, but then I tried it and I didn't like it. I was going back and revisiting my assessment of some of those experiences and realizing that it wasn't that I didn't like the activity. I would get so into the activity that I hated being interrupted. And when I would get interrupted from my activity, it would be so annoying and frustrating, and it would make me so mad in a way that felt, to be perfectly honest, abnormal. It felt like everybody else was really good at being like, oh, I'm done with this thing and I can come back to it later. And I never felt that way. As a young person, I felt like, no, I feel mad that I have to pull myself away from this thing that I'm really enjoying in order to do something else. And I didn't like the way my anger and my frustration reflected itself in my behavior when I felt that way. And I realized, like I said, just earlier this year, that I'm literally an adult now. And if I start a task and I want to work on that task for 2 days straight, I don't even have an office I have to go to. I don't have a boss who I report to. I can do that. I just have to be the one who makes the time for that and who allows me to do that. So my hiatus that I'm taking this summer was really just an opportunity for me to have some unstructured time. I'm going to do things. I plan on working on things and making things during that time. But the thing is if I start something on day one and it's the only thing I want to work on until the end of my hiatus, then I'm going to let myself do that. I don't think that's what will happen, but I'm allowing that space because I make better things when I allow myself that space. So, yeah.
That is Powerful, and also hope something that I hope other people can hear and figure out pockets of time in their own lives
Right.
that they can tap into that. There are so many things that are coming to my mind. Like, one, how do you manage? Hey, Astro.
What a jerk.
It's fine. Opal is locked out. I'm actually in my closet because my neighbors decided to have a block party. So I had to rework my whole thing. I was like, Jesus. And I felt like a Karen because I sent an email to them and I'm like, hey, so like how often are y'all gonna be doing this?
Like just a heads up. Let me work around you.
Please. Because I can do that. But anywho, how do you manage the expectations or the pressures of others to on your time? Because I mean, you're a New York Times bestseller, you do all the things. I saw today you're doing a podcast for Ben and Jerry's.
It's been great.
I'm a podcast fiend, clearly, because then I started one because I'm like, I just have to get in on this. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to them and catch up. But yeah, so how do you manage like the expectations on your time and stuff by taking yourself away and saying, I'm gonna do this for me?
Yeah, I try to really look at my schedule ahead of time. I was not a person who was prepared to have a calendar that reached, months and sometimes a year ahead of time. I had always been a little bit more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person, and that wasn't sustainable. It wasn't working for me. It wasn't working really for the people I worked with. And so I hired someone to help me with that. My assistant has been really, really amazing at letting me know what I have on my schedule, and also sort of reminding me how I reacted to these kinds of gigs and assignments before. So when I want to say yes to something, I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. And she's like, okay, but the last time something like this came up, you felt like it was a good idea. And then we did not have a very good time like getting it done. And I was like, you're right. Like, let me take a step back and really think about, whether or not this is something I want to tackle again. And sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm like, I'm in a new place. I have a new perspective on this. And I actually do want to tackle it again because I want to show myself that I can have a good experience with this kind of gig when I am intentional from the beginning. And when I have the benefit of that knowledge of previous experience on my back, right? But sometimes it's like, woo, I just dodged a bullet because I never want to do anything like that again. And I don't know why I keep thinking it's a good idea. It helps me to not just have people around me who are paying attention to when I get overwhelmed, who are paying attention to what I enjoy doing and what I don't enjoy doing, but it is also super helpful for me to just be honest. Like, I think sometimes we see a really cool opportunity and we think this person, that person, and this person is going to think it's really cool, but we don't really get real with ourselves about whether or not it's actually something we want to do. And impressive and meaningful are not the same thing. I've done a lot of impressive things that ended up being not that meaningful to me. And I've done a lot of meaningful things that other people might not find super impressive, especially not on a mass level. But it's really about what works for me. And knowing what works for me has helped me, really accept that I require a certain amount of rest. And if I can give it to myself, I'm going to. I'm not going to talk myself out of it just because there's an opportunity to look, I guess, busier and more stable than I am.
Yeah. Oh man. Listen, you helped a lot of people with that one right there. Present company included. I'm curious about how you differentiate impressive and meaningful. Like what do those things mean for you?
Well, they're not always so. I mean, sometimes I've done things that have been impressive to other people and deeply meaningful to me. My book is one of those things, right? But I think what it really comes down to is meaningful is what has meaning for you, like real meaning for you. And that in such a way that your labor or however you are working or creating or making feels like it's actually entwined with your humanity. And you feel that spark of creation in what you've made, instead of feeling sort of like a cog in production, which is not the same thing. And I think impressive is a lot of times just about mass knowledge. You know, like people will get really excited about someone winning an Oscar, but nobody really knows what it means to win.
And some of them haven't even watched the movie.
Some of them haven't even watched the movie. They'll announce somebody, you know, this is, you know, such and such Oscar nominated, you know, like Oscar winning, but they never saw the movie because all of the meaning is wrapped up in how well known the award is, and not really the veracity of the performance of the artist. And that doesn't mean that that award can't be deeply meaningful to the artist who put in that work, but the award in and of itself is not the meaning. It's the work that's meaningful. And if you don't enjoy the process of what you do, it is really hard to feel like the rewards for engaging in that process are super meaningful. I have definitely been congratulated or won awards or positions or whatever for things that I happened to be good at that I didn't particularly enjoy doing. And it was devastating to find that I put in all that like work where I had to tamp down my soul and like, you know, be like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to get it done. And then I got it done and I got the thing I wanted, or I got the thing that was supposed to mean something to me. And inside it was just silent. It was just flat. There was no hum of excitement or anxiety. It was just the devastating silence of true underwhelm. Just underwhelmed. And I was like, I don't ever want to feel like this again. I don't want to feel like I spent all this time doing something in the hopes that it would be extraordinary, only to be devastated by this moment of underwhelm, because I honestly, probably part of me knows how much of myself I had to abandon in order to get here. So now that I'm here, the part of me that here isn't even the part of me I really love or like. You know, it's a part of me that has always been a mask, and I can appreciate it and find it useful. But am I in love with it the way I'm in love with my soul? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
I mean, it's all
there.
heavy.
I mean, yeah, like what isn't at this point? So I really want to know about those moments of the deep underwhelm. Like, what kind of things do you do to like nurture yourself in that moment? Is that even what you need in that moment? Like, what do you do to like not be stuck there?
To not be stuck, I have to let myself feel it. I can't distract myself from it. I can't run away from it. I can't just jump into the next thing so I don't have to think about it too much. Because thinking and feeling aren't the same thing. Our thinking system is different from our feeling system. And I'm really good at shutting down the thinking about something. You can't really shut down the feeling about something. It just finds somewhere else to go until it winds its head around and comes back. So I think initially I did what was wrong for me. I would just start a new project. I would just get a new job. I would just jump into a new thing and be like, well, this thing is like, this time I'm going to do it and it's going to feel so, and it wouldn't. And eventually, you know, I've never been really good at lying to myself. And I had to look at myself and be like, why is it going to be different this time? How is it going to be different this time? What about anything we've experienced so far indicates that if we do this one more time, it's going to be the time. It's going to be the right time, the good time. Also, how many times do you have to find yourself at the end of this process holding a gift you don't want?
Mm.
How many times are you going to do that to yourself? And I was like, you know what? Maybe this was the last time. Maybe I'm gonna try to do something different this time. And then I would. I just try to do it differently. And I don't think I always got it right. Matter of fact, I know I didn't always get it right, but I think the thing that I did get right was effort. Just don't stop trying to find the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. I deeply connect with that because I think it is all effort because no one is born knowing these things. A lot of us never learn these things ever. Because like where do we get an opportunity to learn this and be taught this and see examples of it? So it's it's yeah. Yeah, it's just not a thing for a lot of us. So I think it really is about that trying piece. And it's so funny because I had a situation this year actually in the spring where I had that deep feeling of underwhelm and didn't know how to talk about it. And I was just like, I know that if I try to talk about this, that people are going to like look at me crazy because it's like if it was me, I would be thrilled. Like I'd be so happy if I got that thing or I got to do this thing. And I'm just like, you would think that. But also it's just not what it was cracked up to be.
Yes. That's hard. That is hard to confront because it's that thing. And the thing is, like, the people who tell you, things like, well, if it was me, I would, and I would have felt like, and I would have reacted. You got to understand that they don't know.
No, they have no freaking clue.
Like they actually don't know. And they could end up just as devastated as you, standing there thinking I would have done this, this, and this, and realizing that none of that is actually coming up for them. None of that is actually working for them. I think that the central confrontation of growing up, of maturity, of becoming an adult, is realizing that every time you said to yourself, I just know, you didn't actually know. You never actually knew. And there's a lot you can know, but you have to go out there and learn it. Like you have to go out there and learn it through education, through experience, through conversation. There are a lot of ways to learn about yourself, about the world, and the way it works. But all of that is moot if you don't have the first tool, which is just curiosity. True curiosity about how it could be different, what might be different, And that's really hard to hold on to when everybody around you who has not experienced what you're experiencing is throwing their imagination or their fantasy onto your reality, because that's usually what's happening, is that their fantasy and your reality are bumping up against each other. And a lot of people don't like that because they're holding on to that fantasy as their sole inspiration.
Yeah.
I have to believe that it's that good. I have to believe that it feels that good. I have to believe that I can work my way into that position and that there's no way, if I work this hard, that it's not going to feel good in the end.
Yeah.
We have this obsession with this myth that if we can earn it, that like we can actually physically work hard and earn a good feeling.
Yeah.
And that's not the way feelings work. And it's also not the way we work as humans. You don't have to earn really being loved or being cared for or good feelings. And we get so obsessed with that idea that we have to earn it that I think people get really mad when there's even a hint of the truth from somebody with experience, somebody who they probably even trust, that like, it's not that good over there. Yeah. It's okay. Maybe it's better for somebody else. Maybe it'll be better for you, But I'm telling you, it's not just automatically perfect and good for everybody. And they don't want to hear that.
No. And, it makes me think about the point you brought up about you can't earn your way into these good feelings and there's no way you're going to work hard enough to get that. It makes me think about the things that we have immediate access to that could give us that we may like neglect because we are projecting it off onto some like far off distant land or accomplishment or person or a material thing that'll give us that. And it's like, no, there are things that you have access to right now that could help you realize that. Or even the idea, especially in like the grind and hustle culture, that if you work hard enough, like you're going to get this amazing thing. And it's like that may not ever happen to you. Like fame and fortune may not be in the cards for you. And being okay with the fact that that might not happen. And I think sometimes that's another thing that people have a lot of issues with, because it's like, well, why would I work this hard then if there's no guarantee that I'm gonna get rich and famous? It's like,
that's why you need to do work that's meaningful. Because if you do work that's meaningful, then you might want to be famous, but you won't feel like a failure if you're not. You'll feel like you didn't get that part of your dream instead of you didn't get your entire dream. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you just got nothing. It was all for nothing. You don't want to end up with that feeling. But the only way, in my opinion, to end up with the feeling that it was all for nothing is to abandon yourself in favor of the fantasy. Abandoning who you actually are, how you actually feel, how you actually work and thrive in the world, abandoning everything you know about who you are in order to get on a track that's supposed to lead to the fruition of the fantasy. But if it was that easy, if all people had to do was get on the track and stay on the track, fame wouldn't mean very much.
No, it wouldn't.
Because it would be very easy to attain. People are great at deluding themselves. You think a person couldn't convince themselves to just do whatever someone else told them to do and that it would automatically make them famous? A lot of people would sign up for that happily.
Yeah, we see it on social media literally
all the time. If it was that easy, then that's how it would work. It doesn't, you don't see it working that way because that's just not the way it works. And you have to understand that your humanity is a beautiful thing, but it is a limited thing. You can't tell the future. You can't make the future. You can show yourself how to deal with whatever the world brings your way. And you can be intentional in what you do, but there's only so much you can control. Trying to control more than that, getting mad that you can't control more than that, it's inevitable at some point because of the society we live in, but it's also still a little bit of a waste of your time.
Absolutely. And a waste of like all the different opportunities that you immediately have access to and the memories you could have made and all that stuff. Yeah. You said something earlier that triggered a question for me, and that was around curiosity. So what kind of things are you curious about these days?
Everything.
I'm sure there's a long list.
I can't pass a bird without trying to not diagnose, but like figure out what kind of bird it is. You know what I mean? I love to diagnose the bird, but I can't. I love, like, I don't know what it is. I'm really fascinated by birds right now and bugs and all of those things, like just these little animals and organisms. I'm very into them for some reason. I'm really into city pop right now. I initially
have no idea what that is.
I initially called it Japanese yacht rock, like Japanese soft rock, but it's actually called city pop. And I've been listening to a lot of that, and I'm into it. Very curious about Stranger Things. I'm curious about so much all the time. I'm fascinated by people. So whenever I get the chance to talk to like sit down and find myself for some reason having some in-depth conversation with somebody I just met. To me, I have never been more curious in my life. It is a practice in restraint to sit with a person who I've just met, who I think is even slightly interesting, and not ask them a million questions about their life and what brought them to this moment. I'm not going to say I'm bad to have at parties, but I am definitely a person who comes to your party and leaves there, and one of your friends who you've known your entire life is like, I don't know who that was, but I talked to her all night. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah, which I think is fabulous to have at a party, because there's nothing like your friends becoming friends with like your other friends.
Yes.
Like I always think that's like really, really fly. And and people actually having legitimate conversations, because another thing that's annoying is being at parties and everyone being segmented off and being on their phones.
Yes.
Worst party ever. I'm just like, this is not for me. It's weird. Let's not do
I
that.
agree. I've never thrown a party like that in my life.
Good for you. Good for you. Life. Yes, that's a win. That's a win. I too am fascinated by people for obvious reasons. But there is something about spending so much time alone, because I have spent a lot of time alone, especially during the pandemic and whatnot, that now I feel like I have to like build my muscle back up for certain stuff, because I'm out. Like, okay, so the other day I went to go get some wine at the store, and there was a guy in there that just struck up this conversation with me. So now I know everything about him and his friends, the fact that he's from Australia and he was going to see a concert that weekend, all this stuff. And I literally said like 2 words. I didn't even say like anything. I'm just sitting here listening. And I could tell that he wanted to talk more, but I was so like awkward. I was just like, I'm not prepared to talk right now. I didn't say that, but in my head, I was like, I was not ready for this. I was ready to come in, get my stuff, and then bounce. But, it is like, it's one of those things, especially the time that we have spent isolated, a lot of us, like, that we absolutely have to hold on to, because there's so much that you do learn about the world around you. And I always learn things about myself talking to other people too. I'm just like, okay, so that makes me wonder some stuff. Yeah. Do you have situations where people just randomly come up and start talking to you?
Yeah. But I always have. Like, like now sometimes I get recognized, and it's not bad. It's always a little shocking, because I spend a lot of time alone. I work from home. This is my office, and I am usually in here. Like at any given point of the day, I am in this room. I love having this space. This is like 40% of the reason I moved back, to make sure I can have an office. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of reasons, but this fortifies me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know if it's my face. I don't know what it is. But my whole life, people have come up to me and just started talking to me about themselves, about somebody else, about like all sorts of things. Now it's like a lot of times when people come up and just start talking to me, they recognize me from something.
Yeah.
It's weird. It happened in Disney World. I was in Disney World.
Oh,
this lady stopped
wow.
me. It is every time I travel somewhere, it happens. Any place I've traveled to in the last year, I've gotten stops, from Palm Springs to Chicago to Boston to Santa Fe, like to now like Disney World. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like this is it's very, very interesting. But it's not that different. I just must have like,
it's like an elevated version of what you've always been. Yeah.
Right. At least now when they come and talk to me, they're like, I'm pretty sure they're talking to me the whole time. Like before, for a little bit, I'm like, what's going on here? Do you think you're talking to somebody else? Like what's happening? But yeah, it has always happened. I worked a job in high school at a store called Kirkland's in the mall in Fort Wayne. It was at the top of the escalator. So
they sold the like Christian gifts and stuff.
They sold everything. We used to call it the random shit store because it was always
that sounds about right. Yeah,
random stuff in there. People bought that stuff up. Old ladies from the suburbs would drive in from Ohio to buy that stuff up. I was like, y'all, whatever. Deep. But when I was working there, I remember sometimes we would do this thing where you would have like a sidewalk sale where things that were on sale inside the store, we would set up this table and put things on the table, and we would have an associate stand out there to like talk to people and, you know, hopefully guide them into the store, and people would see the sales stuff, and all the stores did it. And one time this lady came up to me and was asking me about the products, and I was telling her about it. And then she started telling me about her divorce, and she didn't leave for 30 minutes. Telling me about her divorce. And it wasn't like somebody, you know, sometimes people walk up to you and start talking to you about stuff and you're like, man, they do this to a lot of people. It was like, yes. It was like, no, yeah. She seemed like it was compulsive and like she didn't even know why she was talking to me about her divorce. And I was 17.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, you know, like I'm listening. Like, I'm like, that sounds messed up. Yeah, I wouldn't take that if I was you. You know,
I'm like, because then my next question was, so do you give advice or are you just more so like, I'll listen in and just let you process whatever you got going on?
I rarely give anybody advice about anything because I think
smart decision.
I think I'm not qualified to mostly give advice. I'm being seriously, I don't think I'm qualified. I think I can tell you how I did things. And maybe that might inspire you to figure out the way that you do them. But advice, I don't know your life. I barely know you, probably. Advice, no. I have friends who have done like advice columns, who currently do advice columns. I think it's so cool. I think it's so great. And I know that I am unqualified to do the same. I know that I think that
self-awareness, that self-awareness is important because everybody doesn't have it. Some people, they get a little bit of wisdom and they're just like, look, let me help you understand.
Right. Here are my 10 signs of success. That's like me being like, I'm going to teach a class about how to get your memoir on the New York Times bestseller list. I don't know how that happened.
You know, people would buy it though. That's the fucked up part.
People would buy it.
They would absolutely, no matter what it would cost. Yep.
Absolutely. I could charge you know, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have integrity, baby, I would be wrong. If we're in the money. If I didn't have integrity, I would be the kind of rich that like little kids think I am. Right? Wow. Like that's how rich I would be because it would be so easy to take advantage of people's desire to be in proximity to someone who has institutional markers of success. The problem is that when we start talking about something like somebody trying to sell you a class about how to get your memoir on the New York Times bestseller list, it's like, you actually have to be an author who has gone, I think, probably through the publication process to look at that class and know you can't teach a class on that.
Yeah.
You know, but the average person doesn't know that. And so you could be like, yeah, I'm selling my guide. I'm making a PDF. It's a guide. It's only $5. If you can't take the course is $400, but if you can't take the course, I got you. I understand. It's only $5. And now 500 people buy your $5 PDF, and you've just made $500 5 times.
Yeah.
In one day over some sale that you're doing. It's a lot of money. And you can do it for a while making money like that, doing things like that. I see it. I know I'm a Capricorn. I see all the ways to make money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Capricorns are special in that regard. I think y'all might be up there with Virgos in terms of, because Virgos, they said are like cult leaders, like could be cult leaders. I'm a Virgo. And I'm like, I think Capricorns might be like neck and neck with us when it comes to the ability to be on some shit like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. The only difference between a Virgo cult leader and a Capricorn cult leader is that you would know about the cult with the Virgo leader and you wouldn't know about the one with the Capricorn leader. That's the only difference. I truly believe that. But yeah, it's, you know, I'm so good. I tell people all the time, I don't really have like a strategy for my career, for how I like make money. Like I really don't. I don't have a strategy, and they don't like hearing that, because it's like, well, you can't make money without a strategy. And I'm like, you
That's not
absolutely
fair.
can. Like, you absolutely can. You can maximize making money with a strategy, and probably also with a strategy combined with low morals. You can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what does that cost you? You know, like pretending, lying, keeping up the facade, like all of that stuff. It might seem cheap in the moment, but it costs you something in the long term. And it's not necessarily money. It might not even be, you know, something illegal. It's not criminal, you know, to sell things to people. But something in you is not going to feel right.
Yeah.
And that's going to bleed into everything else you do and make. And I don't want that on me. I don't want that living inside me.
Yeah. Understandably so, because when you're trying to accomplish certain things, or at least like live the best way you possibly can, it's like that stuff is heavy to be carrying around.
Yes.
A bunch of like, and I don't know what you believe about karma or whatever, but carrying around a bunch of like extra karmic baggage because you was thirsty and trying to get paid.
Yes.
But,
and you know, it's one thing if you're in survival mode. People in survival mode, I do what you got to do and forgive yourself for it, because you're surviving. But I'm not in survival mode. I'm fine doing things legitimately and keeping my integrity together. I'm living a life that's pretty good, and I'm good. I have a reasonable amount of stability. I have a reasonable amount of abundance. I think that when people want something beyond what's reasonable, you know, and reasonable is different for everybody. I'm not trying to shame anybody for wanting things. But you got to know the difference between what you want and what you need. And you have to know the difference between desire and lack. Just because I want something does not mean that I'm living in lack, that I'm going without. There is a such thing as enough, and I have enough. So I don't have to be, you know, like creepy about the way I bring whatever's coming next to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in terms of what's coming next, I'm not going to ask you what's coming next. What I want to ask you is, what are your thoughts about the next? Like, because I'm sure that you have been asked a million times, like, oh, okay, so when's the next book coming out? And when you're going to do this? And da-da-da, and are you going to make a movie? And blah, blah, blah. Like, what is your... Because I sense from you that you're a person that is intentional about trying to stay present in on what it is that you're doing. How do you even react and work with that type of, you know, inquiry?
I resist it. I tend to resist it, or just be really honest about it, which is to just say, I don't know. You know? I do that all the time.
Okay, so I want to know, how do people respond when you say, I don't know?
I mean, surprised, because people have a hard time visualizing success outside of a very narrow model. My version of success includes a lot of freedom, like a lot of freedom. And it has to, because that's where I thrive. That's where I make things from, is in the places where I feel free. And I want to dig into the places where I feel less free and open those places up as well. Like that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm opening a bunch of suitcases and boxes and digging through them and seeing if anything worthy is in there. And I'm taking my time so that I can really think about it, and I can reflect on it, and I can hold whatever I find. And in order to do that, I need the most expensive thing of all, more so than anything I could buy, which is time. That's what I need more than anything: time to create, room and space to create. Those are things that can't show up in my bank account, but I can certainly use what's in my bank account to provide more of those things for myself. I just can't buy them.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I can't buy them, but I need them in order to be a full person, in order to be a creative person, in order to be a person who makes her living by making art. I gotta have that space.
Yeah.
I gotta have that room.
Yeah. And I really believe that by creating that space, that it just attracts more abundance anyway, and the type of abundance that is aligned with where you are and the type of things that you want to do, as opposed to like being on the hamster wheel of I gotta get it,
Yes.
I gotta get it, I gotta get it. Because I feel like that's operating out of a place of lack and feeling like there's not enough. So I have to do everything
Right.
right now to gobble it up. And it's like, well, no, there's
Yes.
more than enough around in so many different areas, that you could have access to.
And you have to leave room for them to actually enter your life. When you make space, you're also making space for things to come in. Like, I think sometimes we make like almost like a wall of busyness so that nothing gets out. But that wall of busyness is also keeping anything from getting in. And
Mhm.
I want room for things to surprise me. And you say this like about how when you make the room, it sort of attracts things. I've read that and I've heard that, and it used to feel really woo woo to me. Like no, you're
I
not.
get it.
But the truth of the matter is, when I look at the evidence of my life, when I look at the evidence of my career and my career trajectory, that's exactly what happened. There are so many places where I took a leap into a darkness without a landing, with a landing I couldn't see, and just hoped against hope that I could feel it, that I would remember what it felt like for my feet to hit solid ground and to feel safe on that solid ground, a reasonable amount of safety, because a lot of this requires risk, you know. But like, just as an example, not, and I shit you not, this was 2 days ago. I was sitting with my husband and I turned to him and I said, I just want you to know I'm having a lot of anxiety right now about money. And he's like, what? Why? And like, he goes to get on the phone to look at the accounts, and I'm like, nothing's wrong with the accounts. The accounts are fine. I'm having anxiety about money because I'm taking this hiatus this
Mm.
summer. And, even though like I can look at the numbers, I can see that it's going to be fine. It is scary for me to not be doing anything towards making money during that time. That feels scary to me. And I'm not a 40-hour-a-week girl. I'm not even really a 20-hour-a-week girl, if we keeping it
God
all
bless
the
it.
way but, So it's not like, oh, I'm terrified to ever slow down. I know how to slow down, but the idea of like this block of time, and it's 6 weeks, a 6-week block of time where I decide what I'm doing during that day. I'm setting my own rhythms and routines. I don't have to go anywhere to do anything for anybody else. That's just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I told myself, you know what? I think next time this happens, I'm bringing myself out of that anxiety. I'm bringing myself out of that panic, and I'm breathing through it, and I'm realizing it's going to be okay. My husband's reminding me we planned for this. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I'm breathing through it, and I tell myself in my mind, okay, we're okay. But I think that next time I want to do this, the amount of money that I want to have set aside will be this much, because that would make me feel a lot more comfortable when I factor in some of the expenses that are going to be coming up, people that are helping out, like all of that stuff. And do you know, like a day later, I get a little ping from my agent saying, hey, this group wants you to come. It's one day. It's like, I think the whole engagement is about an hour and a half, and it's going to be this amount of money. And it's the exact amount of money that I thought to myself, next time I want to save up an extra this amount so that I feel a little more comfortable. I feel a little more ready for this. I'm fine right now, but this will make it, next time I'll know a little bit better. And now I'm going to this gig and I'll be able to save that whole check, and it'll be the exact amount of money that makes me feel more comfortable for my break. So things like that happen to me a lot. And I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't happen. I'm not going to sit around and be like, I know it sounds weird, because I do know it sounds weird, but I also know that it's just true. Yeah. It's just the truth of my life, that when I make room for myself to take care of myself, in most cases, the universe responds by taking care of me. Yeah. I didn't say I want a new car. I didn't say I want a new this, I want a new that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, in order to get the rest I feel I required next time, I think that this is what I want to do. But this time, I'm still going to be okay. I have gratitude for this moment. I'm good. Plop. There it is in front of me.
Yeah. 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 It's amazing. And, I just want to shout out real quick. Shout out to Amazing Husbands. I don't got one of them, but, maybe one day in the future. But you know what? I rejoice with those that rejoice. So when I see other people got it, I'm just like, yes, because maybe it'll come my way at some point. But
it's everything. It's everything. I wish that for you. I wish a partner who has your back 1,000%. Because I learned how to have my back 1,000% from my husband. I didn't all the way know it when he showed up, but I know it now. And he was definitely the primary teacher of that to me, that I was worthy of and deserved to stand in the middle of my truth and have someone behind me who was going, like, listen to her.
That is beautiful. I'm curious, what role, if any, does spirituality play in your life?
That's hard because, I was raised Southern Baptist and I never got into it. I was the weird kid who, I would go to church with my family. I knew how to say the right things. I knew how to be respectful. But I was never really a church girl. And it wasn't because, of anything other than a lot of it just never clicked for me. It never really made sense to me. I was never convinced that this is exactly what's going on. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that I just didn't trust the adults around me.
That would play a big role because they can be a representative of what a God figure would be in your life. Yeah.
And I didn't trust them at all. I didn't trust them to tell me the truth. I didn't trust them to tell themselves the truth. I didn't trust them to protect me. I didn't even really trust them to be able to hold me accountable because they weren't paying attention enough to know what I was up to. I also had a lot of people in my family who preached a lot of gospel and then did a lot of things, very openly, that were very much against the gospel. And so it felt to me like there's some good ideas in here, and I definitely would want to latch on to some of those ideas, but the kit and caboodle, it doesn't work for me. So now I think that I am mostly in a place of being more fascinated with the question than I am with the answer of God and the universe and spirit and all of those things. I am more inclined to do things that make me feel comforted and make me feel connected to the world around me in the vein of spirituality. I try to really think about how to honor and have gratitude for my ancestors, how to connect with them, how to really learn lessons from their lives and from the ways that they try and have tried to communicate with me in life or death. That is really the whole of my spiritual practice. I think it's really important to have a spiritual practice. I don't care what you believe. I think it's important to have it because something connects us. And it's good to connect with that and to reflect on that and to dig into it, because the thing that connects us all, whatever it is also a really great source of knowledge about how to be. Like, not how to be something, but just how to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I like checking in with that thing and reminding myself that that I am a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That is so cool. And you know, it's interesting because the person that I just another person I talked to for the show just recently had a similar comment in terms of like being able to venerate their ancestors and commune with them. So do you have any examples of ways that you feel like they have like popped up on you or tried to like communicate with you or whatever?
I feel like my grandma comes out of my mouth. I feel like I say things
Ooh,
all the
yeah.
time that I'm like, if that ain't Billy Coles, I
Yeah.
don't know who it is. And my sister will be like, "Ooh," like, that sounds like grandma. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I tend to, you know, I tend to feel love and support sometimes that comes from nowhere. I
Yeah.
choose to believe that that is, part of the people who made me,
Mhm.
whose blood and bones lives in my blood and bones. I tend to believe that. I also think that I feel a great sense of protection for some reason. I feel a great sense of even when I'm alone, not being on my own. And I think that that might be the way I most feel that connection and feel in tune with my spirituality, is when I feel that great connection, and I feel that support, and I feel that lack of loneliness, even as I sit by myself, even as I'm silent, even as I'm, lost in my own brain and in my own existence. I feel surrounded. I feel like there's someone sitting to my left, someone sitting to my right, someone sitting before me. And this is a moment for us all to be gracious for this moment that we share together, that we get to be together. I don't know that that's what's really happening, but I like the feeling and I treasure it.
Mhm. Yeah, which for me is the most important thing because that means it is happening because it's happening
Mhm.
inside you, which is
Yes.
what's most important anyway. And then what you're saying about that, it makes me think of my favorite, well, one of my favorite scriptures from Hebrews that talks about a great cloud of witnesses
Mm.
that, are there like as you're running your race and doing the things that you do. So I feel very similarly.
Mhm.
There are two people that I think about often, and one is my maternal grandmother, Virginia Ryder, and then my late aunt, Debbie Morris. And yeah, there are things that happen, and I'm like, man, I wish they were here. And then I remember, yeah, they around, like
Yeah,
they're right there in the mix,
for sure.
enjoying the experience with me as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It's my
Um
pleasure.
Yes. So humor. I definitely want to ask you about
Mm.
humor before we go because you be cracking me up. Like, you be cracking me up. And I just feel like humor is like such a powerful, powerful form of expression and all these things for a lot of reasons. So like what does humor like what role does that play in your life?
I mean, when I was growing up, humor was the great connector in my family. It was kind of what my family was known for in our town. Was like they all got a good sense of humor. They all make you laugh. It was also for a lot of years one of the only things I really knew about my dad, was that he was a funny
Mm,
guy and that he had a good sense of humor and that he could make anybody laugh.
yeah.
I found that my sense of humor was my very dry sense of humor came in really naturally. but also is probably heavily influenced by television. I watched a ton of television as a kid. I was often put in front of a TV. There was really no censorship in my home. I was allowed to watch whatever I wanted. And I think that my sense of humor became a little bit more sophisticated earlier because of that. I was a big fan of Golden Girls. And so a lot of my sense of humor
still slaps
by that. And then when I was in high school was the height of the Chappelle Show. I was greatly, influenced by that show, by that sense of comedy. I remember the first time I saw Chris Rock doing stand-up. I remember the Chris Rock show. I remember watching Dave Chappelle stand up for the first time. The Killing Them Softly. I remember watching that and being like, holy shit. I remember all these things and being able to make people laugh was the only social cadre I really had growing up. I was not initially considered cool or pretty or anything in school. I was very in the background. I was known as a good reader. I was obviously smart to my classmates, but it wasn't until they realized that I could tell a joke, that I could do impressions and things like that, that they really started to sort of really like me and have me join the fold in a certain sense socially. I was still pretty distant because that's just how I am, but I was never really bullied or picked on or whatever because people liked me because I was funny. I could be a class clown and in a very quick switch, go from being the person who was reading the book out loud to being the person who was asking the teacher to say a word over and over again because of it, And then I did stand-up comedy in college, and that was a lot of fun. I did really well, but realized that the comedy scene was something that I did not want to be a part of.
I hear very challenging things about how that goes. I've done one stand-up comedy set this is ridiculous, during COVID, and it was over Zoom.
That's amazing.
It was fun, and they were very supportive, but I was like, this is not at all like the real thing. So I know I got off a little easy for that being part of it. But no.
It's a wild thing to do. It's a beautiful thing to do. But humor it's always been the thing for me. I love to laugh, and I love to make people laugh. And it's interesting that people are always kind of shocked that I am funny, especially people who spend time with me when they're not familiar with anything I've done before, or if they are familiar. There are people who are very familiar with what I've done, and they're still like, oh my God, like I had no idea you were funny. And I'm like, yeah. When you do it, when people know about it, then they want you to do it on command. So I try not to let it become a thing.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work. So I try not to let it become a thing that people expect from me. And instead, just like a saucy little surprise.
I love that saucy little surprise.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Well, you know what? This has been a fabulous conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
What are you excited about, and how can people stay connected?
I am really excited about summer. The solstice just happened. We are officially in summer. And I think that for me, summer is always a bright and beautiful time. So I'm looking forward to like just walking around, seeing all the people enjoy summer, because they're going to put us back. The snow will put us back inside soon enough. Let's enjoy it while we can.
Yeah. Already not looking forward to it, but let me
say and people can find me on Twitter. I'm iSmashFizzle. On Instagram, I'm SmashFizzle. And my my website is ashleycford.com. And I have a TikTok, but it's secret, and I don't really make videos, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so first of all, secret ticket. So do you watch P-Valley?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you see when Uncle Clifford called it the ticket pocket?
Yes.
I've decided that's what the app is called, the ticket pocket, because I still haven't been on there, but my stepmom sends me videos like almost every day from TikTok. So I'm like, I can just watch the shit she sends me.
I did it for years by watching other people's videos, but then I got my own. and it changed everything. I love I love TikTok now. I love it. I downloaded it onto my husband's phone, even though he has no other social media. I downloaded TikTok onto his phone just so I could get time alone to watch more TikTok.
You know what? I like the way you think. I like the way you think. But yeah, I don't know if I'm ever gonna download one, but I will look at other people's. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Enjoy your summer. And maybe I'll see you in Astro around sometime.
I'm sure you will. I'm pretty certain of it. You will. Have a good one.
You too. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Ashley, for an amazing conversation. I will drop links to Ashley's work and her website and things in the show notes so that you can connect with her further. I'll drop my links in there as well. As always, y'all have a great time and a positive life. Peace.